Alright, so today I have a 2008 Ford F350. It has the regular housings on here. We're going to convert these to an LED with projector housings. So I'm going to be using my ccfl halos with the LEDs in them, and it's going to have, you can tell that these ones have halogens already installed. We're going to remove those. I have different blinkers I'm going to put in here. They're the switchback LEDs. And yeah, so we're basically going to get started. These are the LEDs we're going to be using. These are my Phillips. Now, when you install these on here, you have to remove the glass on the bulbs. You cannot use, since this is an H1 bulb, I'll show you on the back here. So I took the spring off on the low beam here. So the bulb, you won't be able to get the glass inside of this hole, and you don't want to drill this out because you're just going to make it a big mess for yourself. What we're going to do is, since I don't have a failure rate with these, I've never had one of these LEDs fail on me. I've been selling them for about 2 years now. I'm going to actually epoxy this on the plastic here to this part of the housing, so it's actually going to be glued in, and you want it to be nice and straight. You don't want it leaning side to side or anything, because it'll just mess up your beam. So you want it nice and straight. So I'm going to put some tape on it. We're going to epoxy it in and hold it in there, so it's nice and flat on the onto the housing and nice and straight. And we're going to let that dry, and then we'll continue on with the install. So both of these, so you have your this is your halo driver here. This is your your high beam here. So with the high beam, we'll just remove the spring. Okay, I'm going to remove these wires, and I'm actually going to cut these out because I'm going to have these come out. So I'm going to cut these off. I don't want any connectors on these, and I'm going to pull these right out of here. And then, so you have your high beam is red, so just remember that. Here's your factory plug. We're going to use that still. And then another thing I'm going to add on this is we're going to put a relay on there. So on these, when you go from low beam to high beam, it'll actually shut your low beam off the way the truck is designed. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to install a relay to where when the high beam come on, it's going to keep the low beams on. So the projectors will stay on and your high beams will come on. That's another trick thing. I'll show you how to do that. But let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and cut these wires out. I'm going to remove the factory halogen bulb here. These two clips. Fold it back. And then you're going to pull the halogen bulb out. And that's going to go in the garbage. I'm also going to remove, you can see that there's slots right here on the for the clip. So we're just going to push this down like that, and push this side down and remove this. Okay, another thing you want to do is these tabs, take a pair of pliers and push them back. So you want these to kind of bend, or you can do it with your hands too. So you want these to go back just a little bit, because this will interfere with the fan. It'll hit the bottom of the fan here. So now that this should sit, as soon as we get the wires out of the way, let's go ahead and cut these off real quick. Okay, so I basically just cut the ends off and pulled the wires out of the grommet. Okay, so I want them out. Now what I'm going to do is this is going to, you notice if there was glass on here, this wouldn't fit in here. Okay, so you want this to be nice and, you might have to bend this wire a little bit to get it to fit right, but you want this bulb to be sitting flush. So you got to find the right groove for it, and make sure you mark it. I take a marker and I'll mark the, put a line on it, whatever it meets this, I'll put like a line here with a marker, and then however I need it to sit, I'll know when I glue it in. That way I'm not having to twist it around and play with the bulb at all. So anyways, I'm gonna get these glued in. You want this nice and square like that, and you want the top one to be the same way. So we're gonna glue these both and do the same to the other housing, to the other side. Okay, now we got the LEDs installed. They're glued in. They're not going anywhere. So you can see this one's glued in there. This one's in, and I also put I just cut a couple slices in to run the wire through. Keep the moisture out of there. On this one, you can see what it looks like when they're glued in. So this is pretty sturdy. And then on this, I also cut the rubber. Cut these wires off, and I cut around the rubber so it fits just around the fan, nice and snug. The fan's not going to go anywhere, but it's going to allow cool air to come in. These don't really need a lot of air for cooling. They work very well in a lot of other housings. If you're using LEDs like this, you can see like this is a different brand, and this is an H13 one. With these LEDs, they're supposed to have 2 LEDs on each side, but this is only using 1 LED for your low beam and 1 for your high beam, so you're not really getting the appropriate light output that you're supposed to be getting. Plus these don't fit in here, so when you think about doing LEDs, make sure you look at fitness as well. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the other rubber here, put it on the other housing, put the rubber on this one as well. I got it cut already, so I'm just going to run the wire through and pop this on, and then I'll go ahead and wire up the LEDs here, and we're going to wire up the halos as well. Okay, so the lights are in. I got T-taps on these, so I'm going to T-tap these to the light that goes into the little parking light that goes into here. I'm not doing it off the turn signal. So those are just going to T-tap about right here. I got everything wired in, and I have a relay harness hooked up here. So basically, here's a diagram of a relay, so you guys can, if you're not going to use the plug for it, if you want to just hook it up directly into the relay, you can do that. So the trigger, you want this to go to your high beam. Input side, which is just battery, so that's just going to go to the battery pole. And then you're going to have your ground, which is just a ground, and you can actually come right off of the black wire that comes out of this harness. You could just use that and go to ground. Your output side is going to go to your low beam, and then your trigger is going to be your high beam. So don't switch those. If you got your low beam and your high beams on and you don't know why they won't shut, your high beams are always on and you can't get them to shut off, it's because you got the trigger and your output switched. So pretty much battery for number 30, ground, 87 output, so that would go to your low beam, trigger is high beam. Pretty simple. So with this truck using the regular H13s, I actually have an H13 Phillips here, and you can see how mine has, let me focus in really quick, mine has 2 LEDs on each side. So you're going to get your low beam, and then you're going to get your high beam. With this one, you're only going to get low beam on one side, high beam on the other, and you can see how they're kind of offset. So let's go ahead and plug these in really quick. I'll show you what they look like. Alrighty. So on mine, you can see that it's got, damn, I can't even get this thing to focus. I got low beam on one, go to high beam, and then it lights up high beam on both sides. Go back to low. So there's the difference between mine and aftermarket ones. You're going to get lighting on both sides of the housing on low beam and high beam, so it's just going to put out more light output when you go to high beam. And it's also going to keep your low beams on. So now we'll go back to our install. Here's your low beam with an LED on that one, and I got a switchback LED. I'll show you how that works in a minute. And then if we go to high beam, yeah, there's your high beam. Go ahead and turn it off. So on these low beams, the LED goes in there kind of sideways. It's the way it's supposed to be. And then when we're done with this truck, I'll show you how the switchback LEDs work. Okay, so now we got both headlights installed. You do have to put relays on the 08s on both sides if you want your high beams to stay on when your low beams are on. Now for the switchback LEDs I was telling you about for the blinkers, go ahead and hit the emergency flasher. So this is the, it's called a switchback LED, so it goes to amber when you turn your lights off and go back to a parking light, or turn your flasher off. It'll go to the white again automatically. So anyways, this is the this concludes the install for the 08 and for the LEDs and the projectors housings and the spot housings for this has got LEDs on high and low. So if you have any questions, please comment and subscribe. Thank you.